So the key to learning the Duport Etude number 7 in G minor as efficiently and effectively as possible is to understand that this entire etude is a series of chords, and the way to master these chords is to understand when do our fingers move and when do they not. So I'll briefly break down how this works in the first measure. So in the opening measure, we have open G, 4 on the D string, 1 on the A string. And if you look at the rest of this measure, we can see that D and A never change. We constantly have G and B flat at the top, staying the same, and it's our G string note that's changing. It's going open G, 2 on G, open D, 2 on G, and observe while I'm doing that, I'm making sure to keep my fourth and first finger down so that when you practice this all together, there's another sort of claw-like motion. So our thumb will pluck the G string, one will pluck D, and our second finger will pluck A. We, again, focusing on our G string note changing, we have open G, 2, open G, 2. Moving forward in measure 2, it's 1 on the G string and 2 on the A string. Notice how I had to pull my finger back to make sure this stayed in place. Otherwise my hand locks up like this. So pulling back like this helps in this instance. So 1 on G, 2 on A remain the same, and our D string note changes. And we go again, 4, 4, 3. And to do this 1, the E natural, I'm going to squish my first finger on the G and D while keeping 2 down to get this. So altogether we have measure 2, 3 on D, squish 1. Then moving on to measure 3, 3 on the D string, 2 on the A string remain the same. And we have, this one's a little different. We're going to squish C and G with our first finger. And what we want to keep track of is, are we plucking G, D, A, or C, G, D, A, or all 4 strings. So the first time it's G, D, A, second beat, all 4, third time, just the top 3, fourth beat, all 4. That brings us to measure 4. Open G and 4 are the consistent notes. It's our top note that changes on the A string where we have 2, 2, extended 1. So altogether that sounds. Measure 5 brings us to 4th position, and for measures 5 through 7, D and A remain the same, which makes it a little easier. We can now focus exclusively on the G string for a little bit. So these chords stay the same, and so let's look at what's happening on the G string. So for measure 5, we have open G, 1 on D, open G, 1 on D. Measure 6, 3 has to go over. This requires a little bit more finger dexterity, so I like to make sure my arm is pulled up so these fingers are fully supported. Measure 6, we have E3, 3, 3, 1, and measure 7 is a little trickier. We slide 1 back, again, 2 and 4 need to remain on the D and A, remain down on the A string, D and A string. Measure 7, C sharp, pull 3 forward, and try not to let your 4 pull up with you. Release your first finger, and then slide 1 back again. So doing measure 7 again, because this is one of the trickier measures. Again, 1, slide back, 3. I let my first finger come up, otherwise this gets really cramped. And then it goes back to regular 1 on the G string and slides back. Then measure 8. We keep this hand shape of extended 1 and 2 and then 4, and we go back a half step into a forward extension in 3rd position. So 1 is on C, 2 is on A on the D string, and 4 is on F sharp. In measure 8 and measure 8 and 9, it's the same idea of 2 and 4 remain the same, and we want to pay attention to what's happening on the G string. So in this instance, we have 1 on G, 3, again, I release my first finger just to help with this. Then bring 1 back, back to 3, measure 9, 1, measure beat 2, and here we have to do something kind of tricky. We squish G and D with our second finger to play G, D, A, D, A, F sharp, and then we slide back into our extended hand position. 1 is on C, 2 is on A, 4's on F sharp. So 8 and 9 go squish. That brings us to section B. So section B brings us back to first position. And here we are blocking the D and A string with our fourth finger, and then paying attention to our G string note, which is going 2, 0, 1, 2. So all together. Measure 11 brings us into third position, where our G and A string note remain the same. So 1 on G and 2 on A for E flat. And then if we pay attention to the D string note, we're squishing for that first beat. G, B flat, A, G. So that together goes. Measure 12, we're still in third position. And we now bring 1 over to the C and D and squish, where we stay there for the entirety of that measure. So even though the first beat of measure 12 involves all 4 strings and beats 2, 3, and 4, only the G, D, and A, we're going to keep 1 squished to minimize any excessive motion. So our A string note in measure 12 is what's changing. So in measure 12, we're going E flat, 4, 2, all together. And then measure 13, 2 takes the place of, 2 goes back a half step, we move back a half step, 1 slides back and opens and extends. So 1 is on B flat, 4 is on A on the D string, and 2 is on D on the A string. This one's a little uncomfortable, it makes a really pretty harmony. So in this one, even though the G and the A string notes stay the same, we will be using different fingerings for the second half of that bar. So measure 13, we start with 1, 4, 2, and then we release our extension and block D and A with our third finger, and 1 remains on B flat to get, and then 2 goes on F sharp, 3 is on D on the A string. So that entire measure goes release, then staying in lower second position, 1 blocks the C and G string, and 3 blocks the D and A string. This one's a little uncomfortable in measure 14. And it's our A string note that changes. So we have 3, 3, 4, 3. This is one of those moments where we break the rules of our perfect round fingers, where we have to squish in order to facilitate this. So again, in measure 14, we're going dun, 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 dun. Meanwhile, these fingers stay squished, and we have, in the first beat, all 4 strings, then second beat, just the G, D, A. Then we can release our squish. 1 is on G, 3 is on D, 4 is on A. Then 3 squishes again for beat 4. Measure 15, we're now in first position. 1 is on G, 2 on A, stay the same. And this is not unlike measure 2. So we have the D string note changing, 4, 4, 3, 1. Then measure 16, 1 squishes here, and 1 squishes on the C and G, 3 is on the D string. These notes stay the same, and it's our A string note that changes. So A changes 2, 2, 4, 2, all notes. Beat 1 of measure 16 is all 4, then G, D, A, then drop 4, and then measure 17, much like the beginning, we have, then this one's a little trickier because of our 4th finger in measure 18. So 3 and 2 stay the same, and it's our G string note that changes. So G is going 1, 4. If you have a short pinky like me, this is a really big pinky strengthener. So altogether that sounds, I would recommend doing this a few times, making sure we're not squeezing with our thumb and wiggling our thumb to keep everything from tensing up. Then we have measure 19, 3 2, 4, where the D and A string notes 2, 4 stay the same, and the G string is going 3, 1, 3. All together, that sound. That brings us to section C. So in section C, we have 2 basic chords, C, E flat, and C, or 4 extended 1, 2. That repeats 3 times. Then 3, 2, 4. So I would practice measure 20 going from this chord back and forth, back, and if I could do it, paying attention to the fact that 4 has to hop all the way to the A string, 2 is hopping to the D string, and 3 has to make its way here. So going again from. Then after that, feels comfortable. Measure 21 is an echo of that. And then measure 22 is the ultimate test of this. Can we go back and forth? So luckily we practiced that in measure 20 going. I need to practice that a little bit more. Measure 23, back to our C minor chord, 4 extended 1, 2. Then 2 block 4. That brings us to 24, which is section D. Section D, 4 is on the D string, 3 is on the A string, tugging again with our 3rd finger. And then it's our G string note that changes. So in 24, we have G going, except lower. If we play them all together, and then measure 25, that same pattern, but now going 1, 2, 0, 1, which sounds like this. Then measure 26, 2 squishes, and then 4 is on the A string, and we stay here for half that measure, and then 1 is on the G string, 2 is on D, 4 is on A. That's the second half of measure 26. And then measure 27, we slide 1 back. It's our G string note that's changing, but we're alternating between extending and releasing and squishing. So by that I mean 2 and 4 are on the A string. Beat 1 of 27, we extend back for G sharp. We release for 1. We bring 2 over and squish for B flat, and then slide 1 back here. So doing that a few times. Again, 1 is slid back, measure 27, release, hop and squish, release and slide back. All together we have measure 28. We have a little bit of relief, 1, 2, 4 the entire time. Measure 29, 1, 1, 4 for half the measure. Then the A string note changes 3. Measure 30, section E. So now we're in upper second position. Luckily, this section is very repetitive. We have 1 new technique. We have an E sets coming up, but for right now, we have 4 on the G string, making sure those notes match. 1 is on D string with a nice tunnel so that A is free. So the A string note changes here. Open A 3 times and then 2 on A. So here again, I'm pulling my second finger back. There should be a lot of engagement in like the webbing of your fingers if, like me, you don't have very long fingers. So here I've had to learn to be very mindful with how I get this suppleness in my knuckles right here to translate into a lot of flexibility. So again, measure 30, 4 is on G, 1 is on D, 2 will be on A in a second. A notes go A, D. All together that sounds. And then measure 31 is that same finger pattern, but alternating where we have the A string note changing A. So we have da, 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 da. Our chord now changes in 32 to 3 on G, 2 on D. These are the notes that remain the same. And once again, our A string note changes. So our A notes are going to be A, E flat with 4. And 33, same idea where 3 stays on G, 2 on D. And it's our A string note that changes. However, in measure 33, after we pluck this open A, we're going to swing our arm up. And this isn't quite our normal thumb position. I don't really concern myself with trying to have my thumb blocking the D and A like we normally do when we use our thumb in this case. Here, I just want to make sure that the edge of it is touching this B flat. This is B2 in measure 33 to get B flat and then open A, that's B3. And then I release my new thumb trick to play 4 on the A string. So measures 32 and 33, just to repeat that, we have the A string going A, B, A, B, A, E. Altogether, that sounds like, should be in tune first. Yeah. And then luckily for us, measures 34 through 37, I believe, are, 34 through 36 are a repeat of 30 through 33. So once we've learned something one time, we don't necessarily need to learn it again, we just repeat. New technique. And then we do this again, another measure 37. Now 2 hops over to the G string in measure 38. 1 is on D, and now it's our A string once again that changes. A, E flat this time. And then in 39, let's just do 38. So 39, we have another new little special trick where normally an extension is only a whole step between 1 and 2. And rarely do we put a whole step between 3 and 4. Here, however, we're challenged to expand some of our finger flexibility. So measure 39, the D and A string notes stay the same. So 1 on D with a tunnel for open A. So our G string is doing this. 2 is on C natural. And then we're going to open our hand. So I bring my hand forward, making sure my thumb isn't clinging, and stretch my 4 to the E flat, keeping 2 on C natural. So here we have a minor third extending between 2 and 4, which is not typical, but a special technique we'll learn for this piece. So we hold it there just for a moment, and then immediately release to a normal position, and then 2. So the entirety of that goes open. And notice how I'm supinating my hand as opposed to pronating it to help my pinky, which is on the shorter side. I like to supinate sometimes to create more distance between these fingers momentarily. So after supinate, I release that and go back to pronating my hand, so like wristwatch angle. That brings us to F, section 40. So we're back in first position. 2 is on G, 4 is once again squishing D and A string, and our G string notes that are changing. 2, 1, 2, all together. We shift now to third position in measure 41, where it's our D and A string notes that stay the same. So 1 is on D, and we're squishing for this one. 2 is on A. Our G string notes are doing this. 1, 3, 4, 3. So together. Oof, it was in tune, sorry. And then measure 42, remaining in third position. Here we have this kind of tricky thing where we're squishing on the G and D, 1, 1, 2. Move to first position, 2 hops over to the G string, and we squish 3 and 4, or 4 on the D and A string. And then we release 1, 3, 2, open G, 4 and 1. So this would be a place where I would rapidly go through these 5 chords. So beat 4, 41. This chord to measure 42, to this chord, to this chord, to this chord. So one more time. This chord, this chord, this chord, this chord, this chord. Measure 43, we're in upper third position where our G and D string notes stay the same, so 1 and 3, and it's our A string note that changes. And here we once again have our, what I kind of call a double extension, or a weird extended 4, where 2, 2, 2, again supinate 4, and I was a little high. So altogether this sounds like, and Again, as I'm supinating, I'm doing my best to keep 1 and 3 anchored where they're at. And then I can release that back to supinating. Measure 44, we have our D and A string notes staying the same. So we have B flat and E natural with our G string note changes. So here we're gonna have to prepare our 4 to land on the G string for beat 4 of this measure. So we're going 1, 1, 1, 4 all together. Oh, sorry. And then measure 45 makes it our mission to, oh, 1 second. I wrote something down wrong in my music. No, I didn't. Sorry. Measure 45 is combining all of these techniques at once. So we have 1, 3, 2. So we can think of this as 4 back-to-back chords. 1, 3, 2. Double extend 4, keeping these anchored. Release. 1, 3, 2. 4 on the G string. So a lot of pinky power here. One more time. Extend. And then echo. 46. Oh, and we're almost home. 47. 4th position, back to our 1 on G, 2 on D, 4 on A, and luckily that stays the same for all 47, so we just mosey on through, dot, 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 dot. And then the following measure 48, 1, 1, 4 for 2 beats. A changes to 1, 1, 3. G, we're home, literally. So we now have something similar to measure 5. 2 and 4 remains the same. It's our G string note that changes to give us measure 50, sort of similar. 1 and A stay the same, or D and A stay the same. 1, 3, with our D string or G string going open 2 to give us measure 51. 2, 4 stay the same, and we repeat what we just played. 1, 3 hop over, and now 53 is one of the kind of gnarlier measures. So we have open 2, 4, 3, 2, 4 extended 1, release, and hop back. So let's pay attention to what's happening just on the D and A string. We have starting, I'm going to be mentioning this in the order of D, A, 2, 4, drop 3 on D, 2 on A, drop 4, slide 1 on A, release, hop 1 to D, 3 is on A. So altogether we have, I lost my place. There I am. Altogether, then we repeat this. And then 55, almost unluckily, is just a lot of G, D, G, D, G, D, G, over and over, with 2 and 4 remaining on the D and A string. So hopefully that clarifies all of the fingerings in this etude. There will be a companion video for you to slowly practice along, but use this, repeat any section as necessary to just get your bearings on what's happening in the left hand, and happy practicing. Thank you.